What's up, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for clicking on today's video. So today we're going to be talking about genuinely the craziest thing, one of the craziest things that has ever happened to me. It was seriously crazy. But before we get into that, I want to let you guys know that CrossFit actually recently uploaded a video all about my journey on their channel. It is genuinely my favorite video that's ever been made about my journey because it really shows every part of it from the beginning to when I found bodybuilding to when I found CrossFit and everything in between. It really is, I think it's just a really well-made video and I'm really proud of it. So I'll go ahead and link that down in the description, but let's get into the story. So as I'm sure a lot of you guys know, I was recently at the CrossFit Games, and I was actually at the CrossFit Games with a company that I work with called ROMWOD, right? And so I was doing stuff for them, nothing super crazy, just really kind of hanging out at their booth and just meeting people. It was a couple days into the games. I think this was on Saturday. Yeah, it was on Saturday, and they're one of the title sponsors of the games, and apparently all of like the main title sponsors kind of have their own set day where it's mainly focused on their services, their product, whatever it might be. And Saturday happened to be ROMWOD's day, right? And so me and Amanda were actually at our hotel room and just kind of hanging out. We did a workout at the local CrossFit gym that was right next to the hotel. Then I ended up getting a text from one of the owners of ROMWOD. And this is kind of where everything started. So this is what the text says. It says, "Good morning, can you find me when you get on site, so get to the games. I wanted to see if you'd be comfortable doing a 5-minute interview with CrossFit on behalf of ROMWOD." So for me, I thought it was gonna be like a little interview with like maybe one of the guys from CrossFit and with the ROMWOD guys. I had no idea where it was going, what it was going to be, but of course I was like, yeah, I'm down to do that. I don't see why I wouldn't wanna do that. So me, Amanda, Craig, and Jazz, we all end up going to the CrossFit Games, and now this is where things get kind of funny. So when we were walking towards the ROMWOD to their area, right, we looked to our right, and you can see when you're at the games, you can see like the whole broadcast situation. You can see the guys that are getting filmed. You can see the whole live thing, right? You can see it happening. And when we walked by, it was funny. Craig made a joke and said like, "Oh, we should just hop up on stage and, you know, say who we are, blah, blah." You know, made a joke about being on the live broadcast in front of thousands and thousands of people, right? And we all laughed, and we kept walking to the ROMWOD booth. And then Craig and Jazz, they kind of went and did their own thing because again, I was the only one that was going to be interviewed. And then so I finally got to the ROMWOD. They had like a little RV in the back, so I got inside of there. And when I got in there, there was like all of the owners of ROMWOD were in there, and I was like, what is this? I was like, okay, that's when I kind of started to notice, okay, this is a little bit more big of a deal than I had originally thought. So I go ahead and I sit down, and then they kind of let me know what's going on. And that was the first time I realized that I was going to be interviewed by one of the guys that was on the panel is Dan Bailey. Now, if you don't really know much about CrossFit, you probably don't know who that is, but if you do know CrossFit, he's been an athlete for many years. He's one of the more popular athletes, and he was doing a lot of the live broadcasts that year at the games, this year at the games. And then also a couple other people were going to be on like the broadcast, you know, team or whatever, right? And then so they were letting me know that's what I was doing, and that's when I kind of realized, okay, so this is not just an interview with one of the guys from ROMWOD kind of talking about what the services are. At this point in time, they kind of give me a breakdown of the questions that I'm gonna be asked, the answers they kind of want me to say, but again, they're like, we want you to speak on your behalf, you tell your story, we're not trying to put words in your mouth. So, but they kind of just told me what to expect going into it, which reminded me exactly of how it was when I went on Ellen. They pretty much told you exactly the questions you were gonna be asked, so you weren't caught off guard, which is always really nice because getting caught off guard when you're like in front of a lot of people is not fun. So they kind of told me everything that was going to be going on, and they gave me a ROMWOD shirt. They said, okay, can you put this on? So I put that on, and then from there, that's when we walked to the actual, you know, broadcast area where they were going to film everything that was going on. And they actually had me go up on stage and introduce myself and kind of talk to the people that I'm going to be talking to, I guess so I can get a little bit more comfortable. Luckily for me, I actually have already met the lady that's in it. Her name's Annie. She's also like been doing CrossFit stuff for years and years and years. She's one of the nicest people I know. So I knew her, so there was already a rapport there. And then me and Dan have actually met a couple times. It was really cool because when he saw me, he like pointed at me, so I was like, oh, he remembers who I am. Which for me, it was like a fanboy moment because like, again, I'm a huge fan of his. And then Sam, I believe, was the other guy. And they asked me like, how do you pronounce your last name? You know, just making sure they get everything right. And then I guess when I was under the lights, they saw that my face was really oily because at the games, I mean, it was really hot. You were outside all day. So of course I had a bunch of sunscreen on. So So then they're like, okay, we need to get some makeup on you. So then they bring me back to the back, and this is where they do the makeup. Luckily, they didn't have to do that much. She just put some stuff on my face to make it not so shiny, and then she actually put some stuff on my eyebrows, I guess to make them just, because I guess the lights like blow out all your facial hair. So they're like, we're just gonna make your eyebrows a little bit darker just so it doesn't look like you have no eyebrows when you're out on stage. So when I got in there, I actually noticed there was another man that was going to be interviewed, and I was like, introduced myself to him, and I was like, okay, cool, you know, there's another guy that's getting interviewed, whatever. I didn't really know who he was or anything like that. So then we did all that, and then we walked back out, and this is funny because this is when I realized, oh wow, this seems like it's a little bit bigger of a deal than I thought, because right when I got out there, they're like, okay, stand in front of the fan, you can't get sweaty at all, because I sweat like crazy, so there's a fan in the background, and they're like, just stand in front of that because we don't want you to get sweaty, and like, they kind of kept going over what I was going to be asked, and like, I started to realize, okay, like, they weren't nervous, but you could tell that they were like, they were just like, this was a big deal to them, you know what I mean? And that's when I was like, oh, okay, I need to, I was planning on taking it seriously anyways, but I was like, okay, this is a lot bigger deal than I'm realizing. So I'm standing in front of the fan, and I'm actually with the other guy that's going to be interviewed, so obviously I kind of start talking to him. I'm like, oh, you know, have you ever done broadcasts like this before? And he was like, yeah, you know, I've done a couple, and I was like, oh, that's cool, like, what do you do? Why have you done broadcasts like this? And he was like, well, I'm a football player. And I was like, oh, you're a football player? And I was like, what's your name? And he was like, my name is Justin Forsett. It's like, if you guys know anything about American football, he was a really, really good running back a couple years ago. And so like, I'm like standing next to this, you know, legend to some people, right? And I was just like, what the heck is going on here? So then I was like, where am I? Like, how is this happening? It started to like, I wasn't freaking out, but I was like, wow, this is intense. And remember, keep in mind, all this time, I have no idea where this interview is going. I have no idea if it's live or not. Like, I didn't even think about that. I had no idea really what this was for. I just knew that there was a couple questions I was gonna get asked, and I was gonna talk about my story. Like, that's pretty much all that I knew. So then they get me all hooked up with an earpiece and everything, which is really crazy when you do, again, I didn't know it was a live broadcast at the time, but when you do a live broadcast, like, you can't really hear anything. It was so loud in the place that we were recording. So they put an earpiece in your ear, and that's literally all you can hear is what people are saying. So you have the microphone, right? And that's all you can hear. So that was really different for me. So they get me all set up with that, and they let me know, okay, we're gonna, you know, we'll tell you when to go up there. You're gonna sit down, and then we're gonna start. And I was like, okay. So they let me know, okay, go up there, sit down. The sound guy came with me and plugged in my earpiece so I could hear everybody talk, and then it just started from there.
With us here in the beer garden, this is John Glott, a ROMWAD ambassador. If you're keeping up with them on social media, probably pretty familiar with this face. John, thanks so much for joining us here.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Stretching can sometimes be really intimidating to some people, depending on the pose or the method or whatever you're trying to accomplish.
That's literally the best part, is that there's daily videos, and in the videos there are people that are doing the stretches.
John, thanks so much for sharing your story, and we can find you out there in Vendor Village working with the ROMWAD people.
Yep.
Right?
So after the interview was done, you know, they take the earpiece out, and I'm able to go back up front and talk to the ROMWAD guys, ask them what they thought. They were really excited, and they said it went really well. But that's when they let me know that the people that were actually supposed to be doing the interview it was either going to be Noah Olson, who is a really big CrossFit Games athlete, or Cara Saunders, again, a really big CrossFit Games athlete. But the reason that they weren't able to do it was because actually right before they were planning to do the interview, the CrossFit Games actually got all of the athletes, and they took all of their phones, and they made it so they couldn't text or see anything in the outside world, because the event that they were going to do was the event Chaos, which if you watch the games, you know that was an absolutely insane event. The whole point of that event was the athletes didn't know anything. They had no idea what they were doing on the field. They just showed up, they went, and then they asked their judge what they were supposed to do, and then that's what they did. So they didn't have their phones or anything, so ROMWAD could not contact them at all. So then they're like, what do we do? And then they remembered that I was there. They're like, okay, we'll ask John. I was like, oh, so how am I gonna be able to see this? And they're like, well, it was live. And I was like, what? It was live? They're like, yeah, that was just broadcast to thousands and thousands of people on CBS. And I was just like, what? And then Scott, the guy that had texted me, he said, yeah, I didn't want to let you know anything that was going on because I didn't want to make you nervous. And I was actually, like, I wasn't upset, but I was like, man, I wish I knew. But at the same time, I was like, it was probably good that I didn't know. But I genuinely had absolutely no clue that I was live on CBS in front of thousands and thousands of people right there doing that interview. I had no clue. So for me, it was really just a case of being at the right place at the right time. Again, like, I am so excited that I was able to do that. It was a really cool experience for me, something that I'll probably never ever do again. Not because I don't want to, just because, again, right place, right time. But it was genuinely like one of the craziest things I've ever done. I remember after it was all over and like they were like, all right, cool, like everything's cool, you did a great job. I was just like, I just stood there for a second. I was like, did that really just happen? Like, I was blown away by it, and I was just so excited that I was genuinely able to help ROMWOD in a time when they needed somebody, because again, they did so much for me all of last week when I was at the games, that if I was able to, you know, kind of pay them back in a tiny portion, that made me really happy. So it really was something that it was probably the highlight of my week last week, being able to do that for them. But there you guys go. That is the story of how I ended up on live TV in front of thousands of people without my knowledge. But yeah, it was just a really cool experience, and something that I kind of wanted to share with you. Genuinely one of the craziest things that I've ever been through. But I appreciate you guys watching the video and getting to this point. If you guys like it, make sure you leave it a thumbs up. But again, thank you so much for watching the video. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. There's one other thing that I wanted to say. Oh yeah, look how buff I am.
Obey the warning signs, and when there are flashing lights or wigwags, don't attempt to cross until they come to a complete stop.